President Nicolás Maduro and Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez denounced the destabilizing actions of oil company ExxonMobil against Venezuela. Argentine lawmakers filed on Monday a criminal complaint against President Javier Milei for the signing of an emergency decree of agreement with the International Monetary Fund. And Ukrainian and U.S. officials are holding talks in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, focused on a minerals deal and ending the fighting with Russia. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, during his program with Maduro Más, supported the denunciation made by the Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez on Monday against ExxonMobil. Evidence of the payment of lobbying by the transnational ExxonMobil, which operates illegally in undelimited waters in favor of the government of Guyana, was produced so that the U.S. government would suspend the operating license of the oil company Chevron in Venezuela. The head of state also revealed that these documents have arrived with sufficient material evidence and elements. He recalled that Chevron has more than a century of oil operations in Venezuela, and this company has shown that it wants to invest and has done so, and has reached a good level of growth together with the Venezuelan state in accordance with the laws and the Bolivarian constitution.
So ExxonMobil is right at the center of this operation of vengeance against the people of Venezuela, an operation also of persecution and to exterminate the U.S. company Chevron. So it is a fight that they have over there in the States, and there are a lot of components in this conspiracy against Venezuela, against the economy, against the limited territorial sea, and specifically against the very productive investment that Chevron has today in Venezuela. I've said this before. Chevron has more than 100 years in Venezuela. They wanted to invest, and they began to invest and to grow. And they have reached a great level of development and growth alongside the Venezuelan state. You understand? According to the law, according to the constitution, now they shot themselves on the foot by delivering this hit, Chevron, with the objective of doing harm to us. But I can tell you right now, they are not doing any harm to us, because Venezuela is going to continue moving forward, and this year we're going to grow in all aspects of economy.
The Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, unveiled on Monday a document that evidences ExxonMobil's lobbying efforts against the oil subsidiaries in the Latin American nation. In her remarks, Rodriguez informed that ExxonMobil paid a lobbyist to have Chevron expelled from Venezuela. Furthermore, the high official denounced how the company has been conspiring against the nation for over a decade in complicity with the government of Guyana, seeking to undermine its economic stability. In this regard, the Executive Vice President stressed that Guyana is not a victim but a protagonist who has been playing its role against the Bolivarian nation. In addition, Vice President Rodriguez condemned the unilateral coercive measures imposed against the country with the aim to impact the oil sector in spite of the negative consequences they would have on the Venezuelan population. Rodriguez also denounced the involvement of the far right in this matter, which has done everything possible to damage the country's economy and stability.
These ideologists produced a document. That is this document. What was the purpose of this document? To influence the decision makers and the authorities of the United States administration in order to say that more sanctions not only, obviously, cause great economic suffering in the population, but also generate possibilities of regime change. If you see here, because they refer to something that is a lie, they say that a period of humanitarian measures in favor of Venezuela, In the years 2016, 2020, 74% of the unilateral coercive measures against Venezuela are concentrated.
On Monday, during the session of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs in Vienna, Austria, the government of Colombia requested the expulsion of the coca leaf from the list of the most harmful substances. Colombia's proposal is part of the drug policy reformulated by President Gustavo Petro since his arrival to power in 2022 as the country's first leftist president, and which aims to leave behind prohibitionism. Colombia has asked the Commission on Narcotic Drugs since 2023 to review the current classification of the coca leaf, proposing to remove it from the list of the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, which applies control measures and prohibits its cultivation.
Today from Vienna, before the United Nations, we propose to exclude the coca leaf from the list of harmful substances. This is determined by the fact that science has studied and has explored the industrial uses of the coca leaf, its use in fertilizers, in beverages, and in other aspects. Coca leaf is not cocaine. We are not betting on the legalization of cocaine.
Argentine lawmakers filed on Monday a criminal complaint against President Javier Milei for the signing of an emergency decree, the EU, of agreement with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The head of state disclosed the decree aimed at cancelling non-transferable treasury bills held by the central bank, a measure with which he intends to avoid passing through Congress anything that implies increasing the foreign debt. With only 4 agreements, the DNEU grants the Office of Economy the power to apply the necessary instruments to comply with the fund's requirements. In this context, analysts and experts have qualified the document as a nonsense that does not withstand the slightest analysis. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The Alliance of People United for the Life of Panama announced on Monday a plan of action in the face of the threats from the United States and in rejection of the proposed reforms to the Social Security Fund. The activities will begin with picketing outside the National Assembly, as well as leafletting and marches in different parts of the country. The unionist organizations assure that Panama is going through very complex times, and it is necessary to be united to face the ambitions of the President of the United States, Donald Trump. They also added that it is necessary to suspend the project of reforms to the social fund, as well as the claims of the Rio Indio Dam, the reopening of the mine, and the increase in the subway fare. In 2019, during his first term, Donald Trump suggested buying Greenland, and many people thought it was a joke. Now, with his return to the White House, his renewed interest in the island has generated tensions globally. Let's take a look at some details.
People initially thought U.S. President Donald Trump was joking when he first suggested buying Greenland in 2019, but it's now becoming clear that he wasn't. Trump has doubled down on his interest in Greenland since returning to the White House in January as part of his controversial United States first foreign policy platform. This is the same policy that includes demanding that Ukraine hand over mineral rights in exchange for continued military aid, threatening to take control of the Panama Canal, and suggesting that Canada should become the 51st U.S. state. But what is it about this island that makes Trump so interested? Greenland remains at the center of the debate over global trade and security, and Trump wants to ensure that the U.S. controls this mineral-rich country, which guards the Arctic and the North Atlantic approaches to North America. As climate change continues to thin the Arctic ice and is likely to create a northwestward passage for international trade, this has reignited competition with several countries for access to the region's mineral resources. Also, because of where Greenland is, just off the northeastern coast of Canada, with more than two-thirds of its territory lying within the Arctic Circle, it has been crucial to the defense of North America since World War II. In Greenland, there are large deposits of important rare earth minerals on the island that are needed to make everything from computers and smartphones to batteries, solar and wind technologies that will power the transition away from fossil fuels. The U.S. Geological Survey has also identified potential offshore deposits of oil and natural gas. Greenland is the world's largest island, 80% of which lies above the Arctic Circle. And it's home to about 56,000 mostly Inuit people who until now have been largely ignored by the rest of the world. At the moment, Greenland is a self-governing territory of Denmark, a longtime U.S. ally that has made it clear it rejects Trump's plans to buy the country. Denmark has also recognized Greenland's right to independence at a time of its choosing.
To further enhance our national security,
it is clear the hegemonic character of this second term of Trump, where even many of his allied countries are being affected by decisions that affect their economies, and that point to the United States as the main actor in this process, looking only for its own benefit at any cost.
The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans.
Guatemala's authorities have informed that the volcano of fire is returning to its normal parameters, so this Tuesday regular activities will resume, but the alert will be maintained. The eruption began overnight on Monday, the volcano spewing gas and ash far into the sky for 8 hours straight. Authorities had to close nearby schools and a key road linking communities. Police and soldiers also blocked trails leading to the volcano to prevent tourists from accessing the area. The volcano of fire and the nearby Acatenango volcano are among Guatemala's most visited tourist destinations. The biggest danger from the volcano is lahars, a mixture of ash, rock, mud and debris that can bury entire towns.
We need that it does not become common and normal that we live in high-risk areas, and then we think that it will not happen to us. We go to live on the slopes of the volcanoes, on the banks of the ravines. On the banks of the rivers, and we think that nothing is going to happen to us. And I think that if we are aware that we live in a very rich country, but that also has many threats, we have to learn to live with that country. We have to learn to live with nature and take the necessary measures to prevent, mitigate, and learn to face those risks with which we live.
In Cuba, a women's concert was held with a tres, a national musical instrument, as the protagonist during the Women by AAF festival. Let's see more details with our correspondent Fabiola López.
With great skill, 3 female musicians gave a concert playing the tres, a national musical instrument made up of 3 orders of double strings, demonstrating their skill and mastery during the Women by AAF festival held in Havana, which coincided with the celebration of International Women's Day. Although this instrument has traditionally been related to men, these Cuban women sent a message of empowerment by pointing out that more and more women are becoming part of the music scene throughout the country.
Whenever a woman becomes a member of one of these orchestras, of these traditional ensembles, there will always be the question of how well she will do it, how well she will fit into the style. Will she have the concept, or will she be at the same level as the rest of the members who are men?
We are fighting for that, so that women also have their own space and their own concepts. and that they get rid of the idea that you touch male or you touch female to see if it's right or wrong.
El tres es ligeramente más pequeño que una guitarra tradicional.
The tres is smaller than a traditional Spanish guitar. Its first references date back to the end of the 19th century, and it is said that it emerged in the east of the island, although some experts also affirm that the instrument was brought from Spain at the same time. At present, training in the tres is taught throughout the country at all three levels of musical education, with a large number of women among the student body.
Un gran número de mujeres formando parte del estudiando.
I had never seen a trace before, only on television. Studying the instrument and daring to do what few women have dared before has made my life have a different flavor.
Durante el festival Women by IVE,
During the Women by IVE festival, the three artists also offered a workshop with other women interested in this musical instrument, where they shared their experiences in their training and their contribution to the cultural identity of Cuba.
Y aporta la identidad cultural de Cuba.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to From the South. Ukrainian and U.S. officials are holding talks in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, focused on mineral deals and ending the fighting with Russia. The talks will be the most senior meeting between Ukrainian and U.S. officials since a disastrous White House encounter on February 28th, when U.S. President Donald Trump publicly berated Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Earlier today, with just a few hours ahead of the meeting in Saudi Arabia, at least 3 people were killed in a Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow that damaged multiple buildings and temporarily shut down airports. Ukrainian officials say the attack should encourage Russian President Vladimir Putin to accept the proposals Kyiv plans to present at the Jeddah talks. On Tuesday, Russia's air defense forces neutralized 337 unmanned aerial vehicles UAVs coming from Ukraine. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, this drone attack is the largest one carried out by Kyiv so far in 2025. The highest number of downed drones was registered in Kursk province with 126, while Moscow, the capital of the country, was threatened by 91 drones. The Investigation Committee of Russia opened a terrorist attack inquiry due to the massive attacks on the Moscow region. Israel has intensified its attacks against Syria, targeting the headquarters of the 90th Brigade and the Armored Battalion in Quneitra. Following the airstrikes in Quneitra, Zionist infantry infiltrated the areas of Ma'arij, Kris, Al-Wawi and Kuje in southern Syria. Additional targets included the headquarters of the 89th Brigade in the Jabab region and weapon depots of the 12th Brigade near Esra. It has been reported that the Zionist occupation forces also attacked the headquarters of the 68th Brigade in the suburbs of Damascus. Since the fall of Bashar al-Assad's government in December, Israel has expanded its occupation of the Golan Heights, seizing the demilitarized zone, which violates the 1974 disengagement agreement with Syria. The leader of Yemen's Ansar Allah movement, Sayed Abdullah Malik Badrevin al-Houthi, has issued an ultimatum to Israel, warning that the armed forces are ready to take military action if the siege on Gaza is not lifted. This ultimatum was set with a 4-day deadline for Israel to comply with the terms of the truce agreement, especially regarding the entry of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. Yemen's armed forces have halted their retaliatory strikes since January 19th in support of the Gaza ceasefire, but are prepared to resume naval operations against Israeli interests if the blockade is not lifted. Yemen's stance has become a key player in the regional dynamics surrounding the Gaza conflict. The United Nations has reacted to the Israeli regime's decision to limit electricity supply to Gaza, a move that has sparked international concern. The electricity cuts, which have lasted for 9 consecutive days, are having devastating consequences for the Gazan population, which already lives in extreme conditions. The United Nations emphasizes that the blockade should not be used as a weapon against the Palestinian population. The UNRWA commissioner warned in a press conference in Geneva about the risk of a severe famine crisis. He also strongly criticized the use of humanitarian aid as a political tool. According to the United Nations, the lack of electricity in cities like Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis and Rafah not only affect the energy supply but also the healthcare and education systems, increasing the risk of a total collapse in these areas.
Access to family planning and Israel's decision to limit electricity supply going into Gaza. This latest decision will substantially reduce the availability of drinking water in the Gaza Strip. Starting today, the facility is set to run on backup generators, which will reduce the water production capacity. Restoring this connection is vital for tens of thousands of families and children. Our colleagues at the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tell us that all crossings into Gaza have been closed for the entry of cargo for 9 consecutive days now. OCHA tells us that the Karim Shalom crossing also remained closed for the collection of cargo for the 9th straight day, which is severely impacting the delivery of humanitarian assistance across the Gaza Strip. We and our partners warn that fuel shortages are affecting aid operations. We're currently examining how to prioritize the remaining stock. Last week in Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah, 6 bakeries shut down due to the lack of cooking gas, and as of yesterday, 19 bakeries supported by the World Food Program are still operating and trying to maximize their capacity to bridge the gaps. Health expanded maternity.
On Tuesday, the president of Serbia, Aleksandar Vučić, denounced that a coup d'etat is underway in the country. He assured that violent factors are trying to forcibly form a transitional government. He explained that an executive without elections, besides violating Articles 308 and 309 of the Constitution, would be the end of prosperous, modern and flourishing Serbia. This Monday night, a group of students blocked the headquarters of the national radio and television in Belgrade, the capital of the country. It is the preamble of the demonstrations that they are calling for next March 15th, when they will try to take more institutions by force. The sponsors claim that they are protesting the lack of justice for 15 people who died in the collapse of a train station. The government warns that the violent ones will be arrested and subjected to long prison sentences. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.